Good evening and welcome to the Business of Aesthetics Expert Panel webinar. Tonight's session is focused on a topic that affects every practice, no matter the size, and that is communicating better at work, avoiding confusion and conflict. In fast-paced aesthetic practices, miscommunication can quietly create stress, burnout, mistakes, and tension. When communication breaks down, patient experience and team trust often suffer. Tonight is about making communication clear, safer, and more effective, not in theory but in real practice. Tonight we'll be talking about emotional safety, accountability, leadership clarity, and how communication supports both performance and culture. Let me introduce the panelists for tonight. Is please welcome Kathy Christensen, Dominic Waples, and Connie Brennan. Thank you for spending your time with us tonight and for your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
Ditto.
Ditto. We're glad to be here.
So before we dive in, I want to quickly share one way you can keep learning beyond tonight is every Tuesday, the Business of Aesthetics podcast features real leaders sharing real lessons, just honest conversations about growth, leadership, technology, and team performance. If you enjoy tonight's discussion, I highly recommend checking it out. You can scan the QR code on the screen or visit the link shown. With that said, we also have a tip from the Business of Aesthetics team. That is, when someone in your area searches for aesthetic practice, it is not just Google anymore. AI tools are now answering questions directly, often without sending people to websites. So here is the real question: is your practice being recommended by AI or your competitors showing up instead? So the old model is changing fast. AI search is giving direct answers, skipping websites, and reshaping how patients choose a provider. If your practice is not positioned as a trusted authority, you risk becoming invisible to high intent patients. But here's the opportunity: practices that focus on expert content, real patient education, and strong online signals are the ones AI trusts. So trust turns into calls, bookings, and real growth. So the new goal is simple: do not just be found, be recommended by AI and trusted by people. Tonight we'll talk about this how to shift your online presence from just ranking to becoming the clear choice. And if you stay with us until the end of tonight's session, we have something special that can help you see exactly where your practice stands in this new AI driven landscape. With that said, the conversation is part of our ongoing expert panel webinar series where we bring together leaders who are actively building strong, sustainable practices. So tonight's focus is communication, not just what we say, but how we listen, how we lead, and how we create clarity under pressure. So let me introduce our first panelist tonight, Kathy Christensen. To kick things off, I'm excited to welcome the founder and owner of Christensen Consulting. Kathy brings over 26 years of experience in medical aesthetics and has held leadership roles at the highest levels of the industry, including president, CSO, and COO of the American Med Spa Association. Kathy helps practice owners build clarity, confidence, and sustainable success. Kathy, thank you for being with us tonight. Welcome to the panel.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Next, I'm pleased to welcome Dominic Whipples, CEO of Rester Medical Spa. Dominic is a growth-focused leader who has helped build a multi-location practice grounded in purpose, culture, and clear communication. Her background is as both an attorney and entrepreneur gives her a unique lens on leadership, accountability, and alignment. Dominic, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And finally, we have Connie Brennan joining us as well. Connie is a nationally respected educator with over 35 years of experience in regenerative aesthetics, clinical training, and patient-centered care. She has trained and mentored clinicians across the country and brings deep insight into how communication impacts safety, confidence, and outcomes. Connie, thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you.
Thank you, Lester. Appreciate being here.
So On your screen, you'll see the main points for today's discussion. I'm confident they'll help deliver an insightful and amazing expert panel discussion. We also have some excellent questions prepared, and I'm excited to dig into them with you. As mentioned earlier, feel free to engage with us tonight through the chat, whether it's a happy face, a heart reaction, or a thumbs up, or a comment. We love seeing your participation. Any questions you submit, I'll do my best to bring into the live discussion. If not, rest assured, one of our podcast managers will get your questions answered and follow up afterwards. And with that said, let's get to the questions. Let me stop sharing. So, Kathy, let's start with the foundation. In high performing aesthetic practices, what does emotional safety actually look like day to day? And how can leaders tell if it's missing before problems surface?
Yeah, I think even just asking that question would put you ahead of most of your peers in the medical aesthetic space. An emotionally safe workplace has at least four components. One of those is providing a workplace where your employees aren't afraid to fail. And what that means is if mistakes happen, which they will, are your employees coming to you and letting you know that the mistake happened and taking ownership of making that mistake? Or are they trying to hide it or explain it away or what have you? What that kind of shows, if your employees are like trying to kind of do everything they can do to not take responsibility for that, is that they're not really feeling like mistakes are learning opportunities. So they're not feeling safe to be able to talk to you about the mistakes they made, and that can be pretty detrimental to your business. So that's the first one. The second one, and this I believe is the most important one, is an emotionally safe workplace offers boundaries and expectations that are very clear. And that means clear and understood and agreed upon by leadership and employees alike. Often, you will find that if people don't feel emotionally safe in their business or in their workplace, it's because they're are truly just not on the same page with their leadership and they don't even know it. So say they're putting in a ton of work, they feel like they're working, so many hours, so much work is being done and time is being committed to their job, and they don't feel appreciated. Leadership isn't happy with their job. The reality is, most of the time when that happens, leadership and the employees are unclear about where they're supposed to be going. So they aren't maybe actually even fulfilling the role as leadership thinks they should be. But if those expectations and boundaries aren't laid out clearly, it's very difficult to determine that. So you might have someone who is putting in 100%, just not the way you want them to. So that can be fixed by providing clear job descriptions, identifying roles and responsibilities, talking through it with your employees, regular performance reviews based on job descriptions, all the sexy stuff that we do. Work management systems are great, Monday.com, Asana, Basecamp. Third one, you can't have an environment where you feel like the rug is going to be pulled out from you at any moment. I know employees, there's no worse feeling than to feel like you're working really hard for the betterment of a company, and then and you feel like you're working in lockstep with leadership, you're really embodying the culture, and then all of a sudden your leader is dissatisfied because you aren't doing XYZ task.
Yeah.
And what that usually can mean is those priorities haven't been communicated. So if you feel like you're doing great, your leader wanted you to work on this other task, you're still going full steam ahead, you're actually not communicating what the priority is. And it can feel like the rug is pulled out from under you, which is a pretty terrible feeling. And then finally, you can't feel emotionally safe in a business that doesn't recognize that you're a human being. And an emotionally safe workplace will allow you to have human issues, or that means dentist appointments. That means your dad's in the hospital. That means, my son has a snow day today and I need to go pick him up. There's not actually a penalty for that. Even though in your mind, logistically, you're really thinking of how to fill that gap, you can't really show that. You have to just be like, whatever you need, and then logistically you'll figure it out. But otherwise, it just doesn't really feel like a good place to work if you feel like someone is always like sighing a huge disappointed sigh every time, your kid gets sick at school. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Kathy. I think I love how you just laid it out, just the foundation of everything tonight's discussion. I think it helps to set the tone for everything that we'll discuss tonight. So, Dominic, growth often tests communication. So, as a founder scaling a multi-location practice, how did your leadership style have to evolve to maintain clarity and alignment as the organization grew?
Well, so we founded Restore in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been around for a while, 14 years, to be exact. And when we started Restore with one location, I was dealing directly with frontline staff, right? And
Yeah.
I am not by my nature how shall I say this? I'm not empathetic as I could be sometimes. I am a relatively speaking, direct, growth-minded, some people might even call me aggressive in a way, type of person. And what I missed at first, and to Kathy's point about making people feel emotionally safe at work, I realized I wasn't spending nearly enough time with these sensitive, caring, team-based frontline employees, listening to the things that were important to them, right? Like I was trying to lead my way instead of the way they needed to be led. And that meant just taking 5 extra minutes maybe and asking about their weekend. Or so how are those wedding invitations going, right? Or tell me about your vacation, or what's coming up, just those little things, because my inclination is go, 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 go. Well, that's not how they needed to be led. Okay. So I learned that the hard way, as you might imagine, everyone here, right? I learned that the hard way. And how that leadership has changed, though, is as I have gone from a position, we now have 4 locations. We're building out 2 more as we speak, and there will probably be more than that this coming year. My interactions are primarily with my leadership team. Okay. So these are director level people, and they need something different from me. They need a vision. They need goals, right? They need accountability. They need, they want more of that go, go, go from me. Yeah. So it has allowed me to kind of step into that, what's more natural for me. But at the end of the day, you meet people where they are. Like that's what you get to do as a leader. You don't get to lead how you want to lead. You get to lead how people need to be led. So more than anything else, I think that is what I have learned. I will also say that in terms of being aligned, when you are at a place, when you have a leadership team, if you are familiar with EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, the level 10s and 90-day meetings are really, those have helped me get on the same page and get those director level people really moving in the same direction. So I would recommend, actually, I wish I was on video here because I'm holding the book right here. It's a traction tools book, or it's a traction book. Get a Grip by Gino Wickman is one of the EOS books. I have found it the most useful to actually give the team to help them align around a vision and a goal, which is what I think is one of those important things the leadership needs. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominic. I think it's very insightful, and I think growth really demands a new level of clarity, sticking to the details and understanding about how your team needs you to lead them. And now, Connie, let's bring this into the clinical setting. From a clinical training standpoint, where do you most often see communication breakdown between experienced providers and new clinicians in aesthetic practices?
Great question. I love, Kathy, yours and Dominic's perspective, because I sit on the clinical and training aspects a lot, and I've worked with some very large companies, and then of course I've trained for large aesthetic companies in many small practices, and so I've seen vast amount of teams with multiple complaints of leadership and how things are going and trying to meet the needs. And Dominique, I loved how you said meeting them where they are, because all these clinics are so incredibly different. And many times you get senior clinicians like myself who been doing this for 30 plus years, and I make a statement, I think, oh, you should understand that in training. But then you have these, injectors or clinicians that are not there yet. And so you're trying to narrate and reason, but you're really missing how they decision make. So you're trying to, the best clinical, trainer is going to be able to break it down into kindergarten language. And then also, as a very good leader, it's like breaking it down and not missing the small problems, because the small problems stack up into big problems. So if we can't break it down into kindergarten language for the beginners, and at the same time really read the room, we've got people that maybe don't understand the details of this small problem, but yet we've got pretty high stakes, and there's people in the room that have a higher learning capacity. So you're trying to navigate the rooms of the people you're in, which could be a vast amount of knowledge. So I find that in trainings in particular, when I think about myself dealing with my leadership, and right now I'm with Skin Spirit, and it's a big organization. I was with Lifetime before that for 14 years. And then I've been with small practices for 37 years, plastic surgery practices. And plastic surgeons aren't necessarily on the business-minded category. They need business people to help them. And so I've been in a really big array, but sometimes people will stay quiet in their space for a really long time, and they don't tell you the issues. You're not reading the room. Then you have all these things that are becoming inconsistent in your trainings, and people aren't doing that, and then they're not feeling safe. And I feel like in today's world, not only is there our clinical stuff, but there's a lot of personal stuff. And you both, Kathy and Dominique, addressed, they've got the kid in school. We've got COVID that just happened. We've got fear in Minnesota of being shot if you're not a legal immigrant. Like, there's so many things that you're trying to read the room of fear and insecurities, and yet you're trying to get this ball busting, I want the business to go, and all the things. And it's like your heart and your soul are torn, your business sense is there, and you're just trying to kind of just read the room. And I find that when I walk in a room, I have a high sensitivity. And it's just taking a moment to kind of get the feeling of what's there and hear what's there and see what's there almost before opening your own mouth. And that's kind of where, when I walk in a room, I just want to know, like, I love being number 4 right now, because I love, Kathy, hearing your perspective, because I think, you've got a vast array of this large management. And Dominique, you've opened clinics, and I've worked for many clinics, and we all have this super powerful brain. But yet when you work with humans, it really has to lead, and you've got to lead with intention, and lead with love, and lead with passion. And all of that has to come together to make the small problems die before the big problems begin. And that's where I kind of stay in my lane.
Thank you, Connie. I think in a dynamic world we live, we have to take a step back and see how things move in that environment, and understand how we can adapt to that environment. And now, Kathy, there's a concern we often hear from owners, and that is practice owners often worry that psychological safety leads to lowered standards. From your experience, how can leaders balance emotional safety with real accountability and performance expectations?
Yeah, I thought this is a really interesting question, because the reality of the situation is, you can't actually, in my opinion, you can't actually have a true feeling of emotional safety in a workplace unless you have accountability and performance expectations and boundaries. Those are actually in lockstep with psychological safety. And the reason for that is, a big part of feeling emotionally safe is to be in a place where you don't think there's a big nasty surprise on the other side of every single door. And in order to couch that from happening in a workplace, you actually have to lay out boundaries and guidelines and expectations and job descriptions and rules, and that actually does provide a place of safety, and it feeds emotional safety if you do it correctly. And it's similar to the kid. Like, did you guys have a friend when you were growing up that didn't have a like curfew and they didn't have any rules in their house? And it's that type of a feeling where that child had, we were all jealous of him at the time, but they didn't necessarily feel that loved or cared about because no one was spending time figuring out how to help them with boundaries. It's the same with your team. They won't feel safe if they don't have boundaries and expectations, because then success is a moving target, if that makes sense. Like, if you don't have it laid out on how to succeed in your job, it could be anything. Just given whatever that leader wants on any given day, that could be success. So it actually allows it to be accomplished if you provide the proper guidelines, and you can achieve it and it feels good. So it's really, really important to have. They go hand in hand.
Exactly. I think that balance is key, and thank you for breaking that down, Kathy.
Sure.
So, Dominic, purpose can get lost during growth. Restore blends.
I think,
Go ahead.
I can't help it. Kathy, what a great answer. Can I just say one thing about that question super fast?
Yeah, sure.
I personally love Kim Scott, her radical candor. Is that something yes, okay. I don't know if anyone here has heard of Google Labs Portrait. Does that sound familiar? Do you know what that is? Google Labs Portrait, just Google Labs Portrait Kim Scott. It's just an incredible tool to practice the kind of conversations you're talking about. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I get passionate about this stuff. Communication with teams is just so important. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry, Lester. Please go ahead with your question.
I love that. Actually, Dominique, I'm sorry, Lester, but
here we go.
Another really good one is actually Cy Wakeman. I don't know if you've ever read hers, but she has a note how to ditch the drama and improve productivity in a no drama workplace. She has a book on that as well.
Okay, wait, can you say that title more slowly? Because I'm gonna have to go.
Sorry. The author is Cy Wakeman. So C-Y Wakeman.
Okay.
And it is, I want to get you the exact book title here. It's called Reality-Based Leadership.
Okay.
And it's ditch the drama. It's basically ditch the drama. It's a no drama workplace. So it's dealing with those things that Connie was talking about, those little things that turn into big giant things because it's drama based. It deals with that in a really useful hands-on way. So
thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sorry.
Thank you, Dominic, for sharing that.
We're getting you off track. Please interrupt. Shut us down. Shut me down.
Yeah, we'll stop talking now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about now. Restore blends aesthetic and functional medicine under a clear mission. How do you measure teams stay connected to purpose, especially during periods of rapid growth or operational pressure?
Well, to be perfectly honest, sometimes I feel like I do, and sometimes I feel like I'm failing at it. I think as leaders, it's important to acknowledge that we're not perfect, and we try our best, and we don't always succeed, and that's okay as long as we're trying. Because during periods of operational stress and fast growth, it just can feel like the walls are closing in sometimes. I have an example of something. I mean, I have found that when I ask people to do something that is obvious to me that's important, often they don't have my perspective. How would they, right? And one of the most important things that I can try to do to bring people along with me is not only talking about our values and relating things back to our values, but no matter the level of thing I'm asking for, like, for example, I recently had to kind of go through a process of making sure that our client concierge team was updating addresses for patients. Okay. Like it's a menial, in some ways, seemingly unimportant task. It has to be done over and over again. It has to be done by a human. Why would they even care, right? But it's very important, right? For a variety of reasons, for treating patients effectively, for marketing purposes, for location expansion. I mean, there's all of these reasons why I care, and I need them to care. But I have found that when I say something like, hey, here's the thing I need you to do. Okay, and now here's the important part. The reason this is important is because. The reason this is important is because nobody's paying attention until they know why they should care.
Mhm.
And there's another one that I will often, when I am trying to, so that's a way I will sometimes launch things, right? And when I am coaching people and they are struggling with something, or maybe they've done something that does disappoint me, I always try to take it from the small thing that happened to, and here's the important sentence, the impact of this was XYZ. The impact was, here it is. Those two sentences have helped me a lot communicating with people in times of operational stress and rapid growth. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to just leave it at that. The reason this is important is because, and the impact is X.
It's the purpose, giving them the purpose. I think that really does anchor the communication. Kathy or Connie, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I love the idea, and you guys have both posed it as I like the idea of knowing the why. Sometimes we tend to speak to our staff and our faculty of this is how we need to do it, this is what needs to happen, this is why we do it, here's our protocols, here. And they're like, well, why? And knowing the why, whether it's safety, whether it's we're trying to prevent errors, whether it's we'd love you to know how to handle it when in a split second situation, especially in the clinician role, you have something that goes wrong and we'd like you to know exactly how to handle it from the bottom up, from step one. It's just like running the code. If we know the why and are running the code well, we're going to decrease kind of that cognitive load. We're going to decrease the anxiety around it, and we're going to know what to do when. And so that why, I think, Dominique, you spoke to, is incredibly important.
And I think it
Kathy,
is
anything you want?
something,
Yeah.
well, I think it is something that if you're moving 100 miles a minute, which I think every single leader is doing all the time, it feels menial or it feels like not important. But it is so important to your team that that why, because then all of a sudden it's gone from a checklist to a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great
well stated.
observation.
Yeah.
Great conversation there. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Connie, and thank you, Dominic. So, now coming back to Connie, training plays a huge role, and you build structured apprenticeship and training models. How does clear clinical communication reduce errors, hesitation, or second guessing in treatment rooms?
I think on the training aspect as a leader, I find that, we have these tactile skills. We know how to put a needle through the skin. We know how to clean the skin. We have all these things that we're taught to do. And if we can teach a repeatable skill, then, if I do X, I'm hopefully going to get Y, right? But then there is a why behind that, because there's always a personal relationship with how we do our X and Y. And is it a skill set that we do kind of autonomically as in robotics, or is it something that we're going to put our heart, soul, and being into, which then becomes the passion behind what we do? And so I think we can turn that tactile skill into more repeatable skills, which we can do for our injectors, estheticians, and they can do this. But then is the cognitive load that comes behind, I got to turn that skill into a treatment, make that patient happy, turns into psychological load. And we're trying to kind of take that cognitive load and get that feedback loop going where patients are really happy with us, which then turns that experience into, I'm loving doing this for my patient. I now am getting a good feedback loop rather than that drift that we have sometimes where if we're not getting some of that feedback loop, we kind of go, I don't care. Like this day was crappy and I don't really care anymore. And I'm just doing what I do and it's a job. So, it's really turning that tactile skill into a feedback loop that creates that human experience, then feeds us with joy because we're creating joy for others. So I think that whole clinical communication and just boosting that into it's more than just a tactile skill. It's more than a repeatable thing. And for our leaders, we create relationships with patients, we create an experience for them. And so it's way more than just a criteria. And I think as a training leader, that's my goal because that becomes the why. Why are we doing this? Yeah, I got a skill. I can deliver. But at the end of the day, I am creating an experience and joy for someone else. And I think as a human in nature, when we create joy for another human, it's a feedback of joy. Like, oh, I helped her. I reached that goal. She loved me. She gave me a smile, maybe a hug. Like all those things are real human experiences. And so we bring that business into that human experience, which is why we stay alive as a clinic, because patients don't just return for appeal. They return for that girl did an awesome job and she made me feel fantastic while I was there. So it becomes an experience.
That relationship.
Mhm.
Dominic, Kathy, you want to add something?
I mean, she's absolutely right. Like that, and it's always been the reason, businesses succeed. And I think it is critical in this time of growth in the industry as a whole that, the people focus, the smaller businesses, individual businesses focus on that. It's critical to make people feel special and unique and remembered. And
Yeah.
People will forever remember how you made them feel. Yes.
Right.
Maya Angelou, she's wonderful.
So Kathy, trust can be fragile. So you've seen practices at every stage of growth. What leadership behaviors most quickly build trust, and which ones unintentionally shut down open communication?
Yeah, the thing about leaders is they come in all shapes and sizes, and a lot of them don't want to be leaders. And I would say truly in my time in this industry and other industries, the ones that don't want to be leaders, didn't ever want to be leaders, will be the first to admit it, that they don't, necessarily want to be. In our field, aesthetics has grown by individuals wanting something better for themselves or wanting to do something for themselves. I have never met any medical spa professional or owner that's opened their own business that said, I can't wait to have a team to manage. I don't think anybody ever has said that. Most of them are growing their own business for their own reasons. So because of that, a lot of leaders are in a position that they're not necessarily equipped for. So you can always grow your emotional intelligence. There are 4 different main focuses of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. You don't have to be born with it. It's something you can always work on. But emotionally intelligent leaders are the most trustworthy leaders. And it's very much like Dominique said when she, made did use self-awareness to say, hey, maybe I'm not actually giving kudos to the smaller things. Or for me, it was, I never did the niceties at the beginning of an email. Like I never said exactly what Dominique said, like, how was the wedding this weekend? I was always like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? So I literally would stop myself and be like, be a human, Kathy, like be a human being. But that's something that you can work on. So I would say emotionally intelligent leaders are the most trustworthy. The ones where you run into trust issues is like Jekyll and Hyde situations. So if you're, they really shut people down. So if you're nice most of the time, but then you come in and just are having a bad day and you potentially take that out on an employee or come in not your best self and are allowing yourself to be that not your best self, that can actually be pretty harmful. Unrealistic and uncommunicated expectations, that's tough to be a leader and have that. Strong negative emotional responses to anything, even if it's not to an employee, it's something that people feel when you're around someone who is kind of lacks control. It's really uncomfortable. And also just leaving no room for conversation. Like, just if you're like, I don't care, just make it happen. What that does is it just demoralizes your team, makes them feel like trained monkeys instead of actual human beings that have brains and expertise and all of that. So, I mean, there's a lot that you can do positively and a lot that you can do negatively. So, but emotional intelligence, everyone should work on that pretty regularly, because I feel like you lose some of it as you grow. And I have no research, but the older I get, the less nonsense I can handle.
Thank you, Kathy. Dominic, anything you would like to add?
Oh, gosh, I don't. For once, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. No, I think that's really true, though. Those things are all true. It's hard to work under a leader who they're just kind of like a grenade, like a hand grenade. That's what it feels like. You never know when the pin's going to get pulled, right? So couldn't be said better.
Great perspective. Anything you like to add, Connie?
I come from that teaching standpoint within the clinic in that leadership role. And I have created an apprentice role when I was with Lifetime for 14 years. I created an apprentice role where I would have an apprentice under me for a year. And it was a safe role where these were new nurses, not new to nursing, but new to the aesthetic role. And it was taking them from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the knowledge of nothing, of putting a needle to the face. They're used to putting it in the arm, the butt, all the things in nursing, but really looking at things artistically and teaching them a whole new way of looking at medicine, and really offering them support versus feeling incompetent. Because when they first started, it's like, I just don't know if I'm cut out for this. And I knew based on personality, based on what they looked like, how they dressed, how they showed up, they would be great for this. And so as I nurtured them through their role and was able from feeling incompetent to feeling powerful and confident in their role, it's that precision thinking and also allowing them to say, hey, sanity check me. Like, here's my plan. Let me teach you how to write a plan for a patient. Let me teach you how to do this. And then you do it. And I'm just going to be in the room. Like, going from the moment I was telling them how to do and what to do and all the millimeters of depth to I'm going to be in the room and you pretend I'm not there. I'm going to nod my head. If you look at me, I'm not going to speak. You're going to run this plan. You're going to run this code. And watching them go from that to that. And I think that servant leadership in a clinical role is paramount. Because if you come into a profession of caring for people and you come into the crackdown mode of absolutely not, you just had an occlusion, you're an idiot, how in the world that happened? Why didn't you think of that depth? Why didn't you do that? That servant in me as a leader on the clinical side to wrap my arms around and say, I know we had just an occlusion. Let's walk through this together. I've had an occlusion myself. I understand that your heart is aching, your soul is aching for the patient. Let's get through this. It's like running the code again. We're going to do this thing together. We're going to link arms. And so we're going to serve together. And I think that it really creates that safety for them. And then debriefing after events happen, because I think sometimes we fix the problem as leaders. Yep, we're done. Got that fixed. Let's move on. But then coming back to say, how do you think that happened? And now that you've been thinking about that and we've cried our eyes out the last 3 nights because this happened, what do you think we could have done differently, better? Debriefing, because we all learn by our mistakes so well. And sometimes it takes us a year to learn from them, right? Because maybe we had a relationship that failed, or man, how did that happen? And I'm still trying to get clarity. And then bringing that back to that human occasion, like, it's okay that we made a mistake, and it's okay that we're learning from this together. And you know what the patients love? They love to hear you talking through that in the room. Like, yeah, you know what? Her artery was in a very different place than a normal artery. Like, yeah, and let's try this. And sometimes I think patients then develop trust in a whole nother way when you're really discussing it openly. And I love an open discussion. And I think At the
Mm.
very beginning, I think that we talked about, Kathy, you mentioned it like right out of the back, communication, communication, communication. And I don't think you can do that enough in business because I've been part of small and big businesses, and big businesses fall short of the human component. They fall
Mm.
short on the communication side because they're too big to get down into the small places. And sometimes
Mm.
small businesses aren't really great at communication because they're so used to running it themselves. So they forget that there's employees, and the doctors think, I got this. And then everyone's supposed to follow suit. So I've done all of the above. And I think that where we all lack, even in our personal relationships, which is our coworkers and is communication. It's like if we just talk through it without the posturing that we tend to do as humans, that we probably would be a whole lot better off. But it's just a real simple thing.
Exactly. Amazing. Great advice. Thank you, Connie. So, now, Dominic, as we speak about communication, it often breaks down between layers. From your experience, where do communication breakdowns most often occur in growing aesthetic practices between leadership and staff or across departments?
Well, I think this is one of those situations where it really depends on where leadership is sitting, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there are different things that break down at different times in a business's growth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're talking about a one location practice or maybe a two location practice, it's much easier to be communicating between leadership and the frontline staff, probably because you're
Mm.
sitting in the same office, right? Like
Yeah.
you are communicating all the time. I mean, maybe not well, I mean, hopefully well, but you're at least there. You know what's going on. What I've personally noticed is as we've gone to an office offsite for the leadership team, the struggle then became very clearly and immediately the communication between leadership and their teams, not across departments, because leadership's sitting together now, right? And
Mhm.
Yeah.
leadership sitting together so they communicate across departments just fine. And hey, we've got EOS up here. We're doing our level 10s. We all know what our most important priorities are this quarter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in this room, but now, what about the way that our directors are communicating down to their people in the offices or in the practices that they might not see more than once every 2 weeks, or depending on
Yeah.
how many locations you have and where people are going and that kind of a thing. So there are new challenges in every stage of growth. Yeah. I think as we
Yeah.
grow, the real challenge is not so much cross department, but just making sure that we're taking everybody along with us on this journey.
Amazing. Kathy or Connie, you'd like to add something?
No, I think she answered the question very, very well. It is very true, and it is very different from one size to another. And I think a lot of the speed bumps that happen in growth are when you hit that, that point of not being necessarily a tiny, easily communicated with business. You start having that, middle management portion and all of it. It's none of it's easy.
It's easy.
I would agree. And I've just moved to Skin Spirit in January, and there's multiple locations, and there's leadership that sits, in the leadership space. I was with Lifetime, same thing, big corporate Minnesota company. We're in the clinic driving it. They're in the business practice driving it. But then there's this disconnect sometimes, like, well, where on the SharePoint is that? And we've never heard of that. And I've been there a year now, and I have no idea where is that again. So I think there's a lot of that, like leadership things that got it all together,
Oh yeah.
things we got it all together, and then all of a sudden something happened. Like, well, where is that even? I have no idea where that protocol is. Like I've seen it it's here. So I totally agree with both of you ladies. It's like, okay, like where did that break come? Like how did we not know that? But there's just so much to know.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's always
Amazing.
changing too. This industry is not one that's stagnant. So
Right.
Right.
No, it's like
I
trying
would
to
say, clear and easy are not the same, or simple and easy are not the same. Like simple, clear
Mm.
communication is actually incredibly challenging.
Mhm.
You know, Like we are trying so hard to make sure everybody knows everything. And like sometimes, like you said, like, wait, where is that? What is that? Do we
Yeah.
still do that? Oh, I thought that we stopped doing that. So, you're like, oh God. Okay. All right. Need to keep working on this constantly, constantly, constantly. Right.
Mhm.
Amazing. Now, before we move into our final questions, I want to take a moment and explain about what I was talking about earlier. Tonight, we talked about a lot about communication, clarity, trust inside your practice. But here's the connection many leaders miss. The way you communicate internally often shows up externally. So if your messaging is unclear online, patients feel your brand if your brand stays inconsistent, trust drops. If your systems are scattered, growth slows. So the next piece is about helping you align with what you believe and how you lead and how your practice shows up in the world. So as a thank you for being with us or listening to this expert panel series, the founder of the Business of Aesthetics and in our sponsor here tonight, Equa Marketing, is offering a complimentary visibility and growth session. The session is complimentary and they will review your online presence before you even meet. This includes your website, local search, visibility, and patient journey, and how clearly your message comes across. So this is basically a clarity call. You'll walk away knowing what's working, what's confusing your patients, and where small improvements can create real momentum. You'll see a QR code on the screen and a link in the chat if you'd like to book that session. It's a complimentary session, and it's the growth success session that you should take advantage of. With that in mind, I'm going to get back to the questions and get back to Connie. So um, precision and communication go hand in hand. So aesthetic medicine requires both precision and artistry. How can educators teach clinicians to communicate uncertainty or ask for support without feeling incompetent?
Hmm. I think that, professionalism is huge in our world as providers to patients. Our framework of how we think, and when you think about scripts that we create and how we speak to our patients, and then that kind of decision point, that planning for patients. And, I think it's ever evolving. Patients love a plan now more than ever. People are trying to figure out, like, what should I do when? There's a lot of things available. Regenerative aesthetics are marrying each other. I want to do a peel, and then I want to get my blah blah done, and I want to do my eyes, and where do I fit everything in? I think that when you think about teaching communication of clinicians, the goal is whatever is best for that patient is top of mind. We may or
Hmm.
may not make money off of today, but when you take the time to align with the patient on what's in their best interest, they're meeting their goals, understanding where they're coming from, where they want to go, what events are they planning, what is their year looking like? Like, I love to create an annual plan. Like, I understand that today I had a patient that came in that she's like, you know what, I'm pretty low on budget today because my job changed. And so let's work off of that today. We know that we want XYZ. And knowing that you trust me and I want to be trusted and I have your best interest in mind, we're going to make a goal based on that. We'll do this today, but you know what? In 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, as your finances upregulate, we can change our mind. The most important thing is you've got a reunion in June. So maybe we're light on things now, but in May, the month before, we're going to power it up. We're going to hit the gas. We're going to make you look amazing. So your ex-boyfriend loves how you look. You've created all the things. Then we may power it back down. Like, how can we make your life the best it can be and you're living your best life? So I think creating that trust, creating that plan, giving that passion to the team, like, you're here for your patients. They need you to be professional. They need you to be honest. They need you to be trustworthy. You're here for their best interest. Today may be a day that you're just checking all the boxes for them and walking the plan, but let's be clear about that. So when you think about your why do we as clinicians do what we do? It's patient focused. Yes, we've got our upline that we've got to meet goals. And interestingly enough, so recently we had a discussion with our faculty because one of our leads was like, well, I'm kind of uncomfortable putting everybody's goals out there because what if some people don't like to talk about money? And what if some people, and I'm like, let's ask the team, how do they feel about putting our financial goals out there for the month for each of us? And if we all are in agreement, we can put them all on a big poster and then we can cheer each other on as we meet our goals. And, if we don't meet our goals, at least we're still cheering each other on, right? So we asked everyone in our team of 12, how do you feel about your goal being on that poster? How do you feel about us moving the needle when you make your goal? Everyone was like, yes, I need that because it gives me something to cheer myself on for. So it was more of an insight that she was uncomfortable thinking about the money. As a practitioner, we can be uncomfortable thinking about a patient's wallet, but that's not really our job. Our job is to cheer them on in their life. Your life says, this is what's happening. These are the tools I have. This is what I've got. You can have any of them you want. You know what? You're a Nordstrom patient. You can do whatever the hell you want. So I'll cheer you on in your up leveling, right? So I just think it's like really having that, again, that open communication, like what's important to our patients, because we're leading that. That's our lead. And then can we meet the goals set by business? That would be awesome, right? Because that gives us the, yay, we did it for our company too. In the meantime, we're trying to please two segments, two legs of the table. And so we're here for them, but we get to cheer each other on. So I love the idea of, teaching clinicians about not only their love for helping their patients, but also the love for meeting their own goals too, because when you can do both, it's kind of a cool thing. And also the pats on the back moving up in your world and all of that. So I just think it's really fun. Clinicians do not get a lot of business training. It's not their focus. They don't care. Most of them hate it when you say you're selling. I like to say we're educating the patient so we can help them understand the benefit of their treatments. Their treatments are their choice, but we have a lot of treatment options and we can meet their goals. So I think there's a lot of business, medicine intercommingled that we're trying to manage all of that in our trainings on the clinical side.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie. I think that support mindset is very critical. And thank you for sharing that. And Kathy, now burnout often hides quietly. Aesthetic teams can be highly competitive and creatively driven. How can leaders recognize burnout or insecurity early and address it without damaging morale or productivity?
Yeah, so in a perfect world, your employees would feel like they could come to you if they're feeling burnt out. If you've created a safe space, they feel like they can be human in their space. They should, in theory, feel comfortable coming to talk to you. A lot of them won't. A lot of, burnout is a very personal thing. And I think it means different things to different people and how they handle it. So you're not always you're going to get some people that are burnt out all the time and they'll tell you about it. And then you'll have probably your most valuable employees kind of trying to stuff it down and not really address it. So, if you see one of your team members is under stress or feeling burnout, doesn't seem as happy, doesn't seem the same, it's important to acknowledge it in a really caring and private way. Maybe just kind of take them aside and say, hey, you want to go have a cup of coffee? Or do you want to go, take a walk or something like that? Oftentimes getting them out of the med spa environment can help them, kind of open up in a personal way. Have a real talk about what's bothering them, give them time to express it, and try to work to determine the best solution. I mean, there's really no one size fits all solution for teams. Everything is very personal. The way that they even take help is very, very personal. But I think just acknowledging it in a caring way is the first step and doing it in a private place.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah. Dominic, you like to add something to this?
Everything we're talking about is so important, getting input from your team so that you get buy-in around important goals, giving them an opportunity to talk about the things that are upsetting them in a private place. Like, these are so important. I also think as leaders, just one final thought about this. I truly believe there is also a place there's also a place for us to set goals and decide, not everybody's on the starting lineup in the NFL, right? Like
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
at some point we decide what's acceptable, and that's what we get, and all of these things are so important. There's so many conversations, there's so much that goes into helping people just kind of wrap their minds around how things might be changing. And also, I truly believe that leadership, it's about leading. And sometimes we just make those hard decisions, So both things are true.
Connie, you liked something?
I think that well said, very well said.
All right, all right. I know we're coming into the closing stretch of this session, but before we actually close out, I'd like to ask this question from every expert panel that we have, and that is, if there's one thing, if there's one thing that anyone listening to this could take away from this conversation, what would that be? Anyone like to go first? How about Kathy?
I really just think and I've always thought this, you can do everything absolutely right on paper. I mean, God love you if you can do everything exactly perfectly right on paper. But if you ignore your people and you ignore the importance of being an emotionally intelligent leader, your business is not going to succeed.
Mm.
And it's just, we're in a very people business. Every business is a people business, but this, between patients and employees and leaders and middle management and all of the different things that we deal with in regard to people, if you don't invest in those skills and really learn them, even if you think it's a bunch of, it's a bunch of Zen garbage, the truth is you just won't succeed. So I think it may be at the very bottom of your priority list, but I would encourage people to kind of bump it up a little bit because it's a very important skill.
Thank you, Kathy. And Dominic, what about you?
Oh gosh, just thinking about the things that these two ladies have said tonight that have just been compelling for me. I didn't mention the time, but Connie, you were talking about using kindergarten language and like just being able to communicate things. So like, to me, what that says is if a 5-year-old, if you can describe it the way a 5-year-old would understand, then now you are a trainer. Now you are a leader. And I just thought it's something. I wrote it down. I wrote it down right over here to remind myself of that. So I absolutely love that. And I'm going to go get that book that you recommended, Kathy. I'm going to go get it. Ditch the drama. Yeah, that's my takeaway. I hope.
She's a great speaker too. She's pretty great. And she's a nurse. She's in health administration. So it's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Connie, what about you?
I love the idea of consistency and letting your people see you be that consistent leader. And I think that the drama in leadership, it just doesn't build staff that trusts that you're going to be consistent. So showing that helps them feel safe in general. There's fewer surprises because we're consistent in how we deliver. In my world, it's complication handling a lot where, we get complications and I have to maintain that, yes, this is happening, but we have a lot of options to help the provider, help the patient. Our job is to get through it. No one's dying here. We may have dying skin, but we can help repair that. And it's our goal to not have the drama and maintain safety for everybody around us. And then I feel like the higher the communication, whether it's small tidbits every day, yes, how are you? How was your vacation? How that communication can really allow people to think that you care, because you usually do when you start doing those kinds of things. It allows them to feel like it's a premium. Anytime you walk in somewhere and someone knows your name, all of a sudden it feels like a premium place to be. Wow, they know my name here, and they're super thoughtful because they know my name and it's really personable here. All of a sudden that experience has become elevated only because the communication is there. And I think that's the only way to really drive retention of not only your patients, but really the people that work with you. Because if you don't care enough to know their name, that they're married, they have a kid, they're going on vacation, then really, why would they want to like choose you over the next opportunity that comes down their pike? Because now there's loyalty from them to you and from their patients to them. And if their patients are loyal to them, but they take them somewhere else eventually, because in today's world, there's no retaining a patient if you don't retain your people that serve.
Mm.
So without that, we have to drive retention of our people. They need to love working with us, and their patients love working with them. And so therefore that creates a business of success. And so I feel like that communication piece and those touch points are so valuable. And I actually have two of my daughters that work with me who are nurses, one soon to be an NP. And, they're not afraid to come and ask me, can you come in my room and help me? I'm not so sure about the placement of this. The needle, when I drive it, it doesn't feel like it sits right. And, I want to be a helper to them to build their business. And that's the goal. I have no vested interest financially myself, but I would like to make sure that you get to be a great practitioner, feel confident in your work. So I think people understand and know that when you're truly there for their best interest as your people that you're watching over, they want to drive the business to help with success. So I love we all have talked about the communication aspect. I think it's so powerful, and the emotional intelligence to put those touch points out to our people.
Amazing. Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Dominique. I mean, some great advice, some amazing nuggets anyone listening in or watching this can take away from this conversation. So before we actually officially close tonight, I just want to say if you've been listening all the way through this discussion or watching, if it probably means you're serious about growing not just as a clinician but as a leader and business owner. That's why I really encourage you to take advantage of the complimentary strategy session that I mentioned earlier. Think of it as a health checkup, but for your practice. Just like you review a patient's records to understand their current state of health, this session gives you a clear picture of your practice's online health, how visible you are, where you're strong, what might be holding you back from reaching you more of your ideal patients. It's personalized, it's complementary, and it's designed to help you make smarter, data-driven decisions about your growth. And with that said, tonight's conversation was thoughtful, um, practical, and incredibly relevant. Thank you to our panelists, Kathy Christensen, Dominic Whipples, and Connie Brennan for sharing your experience so generously. You made complex challenges feel clearer and more manageable. And to our viewers, thank you for the gift of your time. These conversations matter because of your engagement. A quick reminder to follow us, share this session, and stay connected with our panelists if you like a deeper conversation like this. Until next time, keep leading with clarity, care, and confidence. Thank you again for being with us tonight. Take care and have a good night.